What's the scariest theory known to man? The Great Filter. It's a theory about why the universe seems so filled with potential for life and yet we haven't found it. It states that somewhere between pre-life and an advanced civilization capable of colonizing the stars, there's a great filter that stops them and ends life. This means humans fit into one of these three scenarios. Capital A. We're rare, meaning we've already passed the Great Filter, unlike other civilizations on other planets. Capital B. We're the first, meaning conditions in the universe are only now life-friendly and we're among many on our way to the capability of colonization. Capital C. We haven't hit the filter yet, meaning we're ducked. If this one is true, it means finding life or proof of life on Mars or Europa would be awful news because it would almost certainly mean the filter is still ahead of us instead of behind us. More good reading. Edit. The full paper from Nick Bostrom. More than, let's say we have an anthill in the middle of the forest, and right next to the anthill, they're building a 10-lane superhighway. And the question is, would the ants be able to understand what a 10-lane superhighway is? Would the ants be able to understand the technology and the intentions of the beings building the highway next to them? More than so, it's not that we can't pick up the signals from Planet X using our technology. It's that we can't even comprehend what the beings from Planet X are or what they're trying to do. It's so beyond us that even if they really wanted to enlighten us, it would be like trying to teach ants about the internet. Yes. I forget the name of the argument, but it goes as follows. Assumptions. The brain is the origin of all consciousness. The brain operates on electrical impulses. External stimuli can affect the way the brain operates. Any external stimuli to the brain can be simulated to a degree that the brain cannot distinguish these simulated stimuli from natural stimuli. A point. You could be a brain in a jar, being fed false impulses for your entire life by an external source. Or, you, still a brain in a jar, could be hallucinating your entire life from lack of stimuli. Edit. Formatting. Edit. Brain in a vat. Also, nod to the 20 or so like the Matrix posts. I envisioned the brain being removed from the body, which is not the case with the Matrix. Vaccinated jet fuel can melt autism. As an astronomer, I feel like I always pop into these threads to clarify theories people saw on a documentary once. So here's one that freaks me out a little, that the universe is a false vacuum. This is, in short, a theory scientific hypothesis that our universe is actually in a false phase state as part of a larger universe. Like if it were in a temporary thing. Think the real universe is a pot of boiling water, and we are just within a bubble forming at the bottom of the pot. Eventually, however, that false vacuum has to pop, yes. Even after billions of years in this false state, and we and everything we know in our visible universe will disappear in an instant with no warning whatsoever, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sweet dreams. Edit. Clarity. Holy it. If you are high right now, get the duck out of here. This is the most terrifying thread ever. The infinite Hitlers theory states that there is always an infinite number of Hitlers hiding right outside of your field of vision. Eternal hell. It's literally the worst thing any human can imagine, that by being a bad person you will be condemned to torture for an infinite amount of time. You might be able to reason that it's justifiable to be tortured for as long as you lived or some algorithm related to such, but eternity is overkill for the sins committed during an unimaginably minute sliver of time. Has to be the heat death of the universe. The universe will keep expanding and energy will keep diffusing until everything is homogeneous. And then, nothing can happen. Eternal stillness. There's a really brutal one I've heard but can't remember its name. It basically says that every horrible thing you can imagine has been done by someone in the world at some points in human history. I can think of some pretty messed up things and it creeps me out that they may have been done before. Rocco's Basilisk. A super intelligent AI will determine how to retroactively punish those who did not help it come onto existence. A supercomputer in the future will kill you today for not helping it 10 years from now. Edit. A word. If you get deep into particle physics, you start to realize that there really is no such thing as solid matter. Everything in the universe appears to be built upon waves of vibrating energy, and if you look deep enough at anything, there's really nothing there at all. And we don't actually exist as matter in space-time in the way you think we do. This concept supports a smorgasbord of fantastical theories. The idea we live in a simulation. The idea that there's actually a god of some sort. The idea there's multiple universes. Some say an infinite number of them. Or any number of other interesting ideas. We are currently living through what many biologists consider to be the 6th mass extinction that the world has ever seen. This is going to be an interesting puzzle for the species that comes after us. There is a spooky skeleton inside all of us. Late to the party in this may get lost, but I highly suggest you read The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. That you will forever relive your own life. It does make a lot of sense because once you die you don't belong anywhere. Not space or time. And you always exist during the time you were alive. So you might just be constantly experiencing it all. Even if your life is good, it is pretty horrible to know that all that you learned will disappear. And every mistake you do anything to take back will be repeated and experienced over and over. But think of most lives and it gets infinitely worse. And then those that were extraordinarily horrible. Talk about unfair. That clits are just tiny D's. Suck on that. Homophobes. If no one pushes the button, Reddit gets shut down. That I'm actually retarded. So everyone treats me like I'm normal. Quantum suicide, quantum immortality. The idea that we never really die in our perspective. Every time we encounter a situation where we may die, we continue on in a parallel universe where something happens that prevents our death. But we die in the original universe, in a sense. Our consciousness lives on by transferring itself to a parallel universe where we continue to exist. When God and Lucifer had their battle in heaven, the devil actually won and cast out God. Now he is sitting up in heaven, pretending to be God while he wreaks havoc down here. It would explain a lot. Edit, as per suggestion. Writing prompt here. The one about the Rugrats being a figment of Angelicus' mental instability. One day mankind will have access to weapons more powerful than nuclear warheads, and they'll be used in anger. Quantum immortality is pretty scary. Every time the universe splits, your consciousness only continues on into one of the created universes. Eventually we all end up being the sole inhabitant of a universe filled with P-zombies. That is, people who act normally but lack conscious inner lives. What's worse, we continue to live despite a never-ending series of things that nearly kill us: illness, losing limbs, becoming incredibly old and infirm. So we cannot die but are stuck with increasingly terrible, lonely lives for all eternity. That a computer smart enough to pass the Turing test would also be smart enough to know to fail it. Think about that for a little bit, then fail to fall asleep tonight. The Phantom Time Hypothesis. The Phantom Time Hypothesis is a historical conspiracy theory advanced by German historian and publisher Harry Buttelig, born 1947, which proposes that the year 613 was followed by the year 911 and that historical events between AD 614 and 911 and the early Middle Ages of Europe and neighboring regions are either wrongly dated or did not occur at all, and that there has been a systematic effort to cover up that fact. The hypothesis suggests a conspiracy by the Holy Roman Emperor Otto II, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VI to fabricate a dating system that placed them at the special year of AD 1000, and to rewrite history, inventing the heroic figure of Charlemagne among other things. Edit, not suggesting I believe it, rather that it's scary that others do, as you Sandora notes below. This is called the false vacuum death of the universe. It's kinda on line with cold death and heat death, but a lot more sudden. That the universe can be gone in an instant and we wouldn't notice because we'd get wiped out by another expanding universe. I'll try my best to explain as simple as I can get it. Think of it as a wave. Universe A and Universe B are waves. A is bigger than B. Due to A being more stable and larger, it swallows up Universe B. With this, we might not even notice. It goes at the speed of light, so we won't be able to see it ahead of time. Edit, the effects perhaps are drastically different depending on how stable each universe is to each other and what happens at the event horizon. I'm beginning to regret opening this thread now. Star Trek style teleportation will someday be created. It works by taking someone apart and reassembling them at the other end from pure particles. So, what if consciousness did not make the leap? This means every time someone is beamed, They die and are cloned at the other end with memories intact. And then society develops in a direction where everyone is killing themselves over and over, some only living for a few minutes. Special relativity. If there really is no way to exceed the speed of light, ever, no matter how clever, the universe will never be explored. Quantum immortality. On the short term it might give you some comfort, but in the long term your ability to function as an observer doesn't require you to actually have any of your senses intact, nor does it suggest your near-death experiences would be painless. You could theoretically survive being ejected into space due to quantum shenanigans on a macro scale. You'll survive beyond humanity, beyond all other life probabilistically, and spend an uncountable amount of time alone waiting for the heat death of the universe. Can't think of the name off the top of my head, but I would say that experiment where students at a uni were playing officers and prisoners in a jail. It shows just how ducked we can be. Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Arthur C. Clarke. That there is a God, I am sorry, but considering all the wars, the travesties, the pains and horrors that we, as human beings, have caused upon ourselves throughout our history, even our known history is terrifying. To think that there is some God that thinks this is all okay, scares me to think what he thinks is bad. Rocco's Basilisk. A godlike eye from the future is going to torture you for eternity, and yet the only way to even lessen this torture is to slavishly devote the rest of your life to bringing this eye into existence. This isn't a theory really, but the concept of infinity is terrifying. Every possible thing happens eventually, and World War II and Taco Bell are both plausible outcomes given the laws of our universe. There are so many interesting and disturbing theories. Since I haven't seen it suggested yet, I'll tell you about solipsism. Solipsism equals the view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist. Basically, the only thing that you're sure of is that you exist. How do you know that other people are actually conscious, real, and alive? How do you know that the world you live in actually exists? Since your mind is the only sure thing to exist, it's possible that everyone else and everything else are just projections from your own consciousness. Living your day-to-day life requires that you assume other people are real and everything else is real. On Wikipedia, it says assuming that there is a universe independent of an agent's mind and knowable only through the agent's senses. How is the existence of this independent universe to be scientifically studied? If a person sets up a camera to photograph the moon when he is not looking at it, then at best he determines that there is an image of the moon in the camera when he eventually looks at it. Logically, this does not assure that the moon itself, or even the camera, existed at the time the photograph is supposed to have been taken. To establish that it is an image of an independent moon requires many other assumptions that amount to begging the question. We just assume that we live in a real, physical world and that everyone else is real as well. However, there is no way to test this. All you can be sure of is that you exist. A bit late, but here it is. You might never be alone. Imagine if there was a 2D person. If you stare at them a certain way, they can't see you. All you have to do is look from a top view and they won't know you're there. And they would never know. And living their life as 2D, they would never be able to comprehend how something could be looking down on them. Now imagine a 4D person. They could be looking at you from a 4-dimensional angle, an angle that you will never understand. They could be right beside you, but you wouldn't know, and you would never know. And just as we could interact with the 2D person, the 4D person could interact with us. But as long as they don't want us to, we could never interact with them, yet even know of them. TLDR. So when you think you're alone, there could be something right next to you, staring at you, and you will never know. Edit. I have decided I am going to read Flatland. Edit 2. UDJLEL gave me an idea to extend this. A being of a higher dimension could pull us into a separate 3D plane. You could be pulled into another world where nothing else exists, and they could just leave you there. Edit 3. To add to my second edit, a user suggested I watch Rabbit and Deer. Very similar. I don't remember where from, but there's a theory floating around out there that memory is based on entropy, meaning that your brain decays in such a way that everything you've ever done has already been done. Essentially, you had free will at one point, But at the moment your brain is just catching up to the decisions you have previously made. You're just along for the ride now. The statistical probability that not everyone who reads this thread will still be alive by Christmas. Edit. Cody has gone. But hope you are all still out there. In philosophy, invoking physics and biology, that is determinism, which in short says you have no free will. Every aspect of the world operates according to specific natural laws. There is a direct cause for any effect, and by knowing the relationship between them and the environment, you can know the results. If you throw a ball up, it will come down. If we had perfect information about the ball and its environment, we could predict exactly, to the atom, where it would land. As it stands, we are pretty freakishly good at it anyway. What then of humans? Unless you believe in the spirit soul etc that is detached from the causal chain. That is to say, something immaterial. The modern understanding of the human body is that we are purely physical systems acting in accordance with natural laws. I wrote this because some sets of neurons in my brain generated these words in response to being triggered by some protein elsewhere and my own history and the fact that I like to share information. I had no say in any of this according to determinism. If an observer had perfect information about the whole universe and its laws, they could, without question, not only have known that I was going to write this, but also what words I would write, which ones I rewrote, and the edits I will make tomorrow, because everything follows a strict sequence of cause and effect. I had no more choice in writing this than you did in reading it. What happened happened and could have happened no other way. The transcension hypothesis. Are we truly alone? Try to imagine a life without timekeeping. You probably can't. You know the month, the year, the day of the week. There is a clock on your wall or the dashboard of your car. You have a schedule, a calendar, a time for dinner or a movie. Yet all around you, timekeeping is ignored. Birds are not late. A dog does not check its watch. Deer do not fret over passing birthdays. Man alone measures time. Man alone chimes the hour. And, because of this, man alone suffers a paralyzing fear that no other creature endures. A fear of time running out. Oh, so Mitch Albom, the timekeeper. I know that death isn't a theory, but as a concept, death is surely the most terrifying thing that can be for a sentient creature, surely, whether it's your own, everyone you care about, everyone in general. Bill Bryson explained that each one of us are the result of all of our direct ancestors, reaching reproduction age without dying or being killed, for the last 2.3 billion years, from the first cells dividing, all the way through evolution. Not one of them died. That makes all of us very fortunate indeed. And if you are lucky enough to reproduce as well, then you have played your part in a long line of survival.